Well, aloha kakahiaka, everybody. My name's Peter Kay, and you are with us on the pre-game show to the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. And today is April 15th. Happens to be tax day. If you're not if it's not April 15th and you're watching this, you're watching the pre-recorded show. You could scroll forward about 5 minutes or so if you want to get into the live thing. But if you did that, then you'd miss out. You'd miss out on hanging out with my friends and talking story and getting ready for the show here. I am here with my let's go counterclockwise. I'm here with Heidi Dellinger, who's from Maui, and Scott Startzman, who is from Oahu, and with Dylan Nonaka, who is from the Big Island. All right, let's do our little audio check and mic check. We're going to go we're going to go clockwise. Dylan, what's going on? What's the shirt? What's the mic? What's everything? What's happening?
How's it sound? Sounding good. Got
Sounds
the living hula. I was joking earlier that I busted out my iron for the one time every other week, so I could get the collars nice and straight because they're kind of crumpled up. But yeah, ready to go. Beautiful day here on the Big Island. Missed you guys a couple weeks ago. Had some army duty to do, so I was tied up. But looking forward to the show today.
Hey, we're we're glad you're here, Dylan. You know, there's some. It's kind of funny, right? Because we of course take our language for granted, right? And when you said busted out, I busted out the iron. You know, that busted out, that's a local slang, and I don't know if everyone kind of realized that. And we got Auntie Joyce who joined us first. Happy Easter weekend, yes, indeed, happy Easter weekend. Today is Good Friday for many practicing Christians in the world, and today is Judy is back with us. Judy, aloha, Judy. Judy, are you on the Big Island right now? I'm not sure if you're doing it or if you're visiting. And Patrick is also here from the East Coast of the mainland. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome back, buddy. Good to see you again. And Dwayne is back with us. What's up, guys? Happy Friday. We'll be on Oahu the 27th, visiting family and looking at neighborhoods. Awesome, Dwayne. Hopefully you're hooking up with Scott, and in 2 weeks, got it. And Drew's going to be hanging out in 2 weeks, right on the Big Island. Excellent. So yeah, bust it out, man. You bust them out, right? Anyway, Scott, what's going on over there? Nice background, by the way, today. It looks like a nice sky all behind you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Actually, it's interesting. Showtime, you can see some of the trucks. They're filming some movie right at that house. They were out there pumping till about 10 at night last night with noise and stuff. But yeah, tax day is always a frustrating day or a depressing day for most people. I always feel like somebody's got their hand in my back pocket. So hopefully we can bring a little joy and excitement to people today on tax day.
That's going to be one. If we could bring joy and excitement to people on tax day, especially since we're going to be talking about taxes, that's going to be a remarkable moment. That would be an absolutely remarkable moment. And Juliana is with us. Welcome, Juliana. Aloha, everyone. We're glad to have you here with us. And Patrick is back from Germany. Awesome, Patrick. Great. Good to see you, buddy. Glad everyone's coming back. It's so much fun. I really enjoy this part of it. Norman's back. Norman, welcome, Norman. Norman is gearing up for We are in gearing up for the Islander Ohana, which is going to start in a couple weeks, which is cool. He has joined us and will be joining us. I'm looking forward to get to know you better, Norman. Excellent. Okay, let's see. Who's up next? Heidi is up next. Heidi, what's the coffee? What's happening? What's going on?
Well, coffee. It's called the Maui Ecstasy Triple X, and it's a mix between the Kanapali Estate, Kanapali Mocha, dark roast, and the Estate blend, and it's excellent. So I highly recommend it. And just something kind of fun coming up. The Maui Marathon is going to be in April this year, April 24th. I'm not a marathon runner myself, but I do have some friends coming out. It's, I mean, one of the most scenic marathons in the US. And according to their website, it is the longest consecutively held running event in the state of Hawaii. However, I don't think they had it in 2020, so I don't know where that puts us, but excited to have it back in person and no more mask mandates for right now. So that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, I can't imagine if they even did a marathon with the masks on. That would be borderline ridiculous. But anyway, good on them. I'm assuming they're not gonna count the COVID as a break. I wouldn't count it. It was a weird set of a weird time. That would be interesting. I've heard of the Maui Marathon, I think offhand. So I'd be interested. What route do they kind of take, generally speaking, to do those 26 miles?
Along the coast, like through, I mean, West Maui, Central Maui, along the coast. So you're looking at the ocean most of the time, which makes it really great. It used to be in October, and they changed it to April this year. So that's something new.
Interesting. All right, we got a few more folks that are joining us before we get our show started. Neil is joining us. Aloha from California. Neil is has joined us up for the upcoming Islander Ohana, which is going to start on the 30th. I'm real excited, Neil, to have you a part of it and have those interactions. I got your email, Neil, was really great. I appreciate it. I'll be responding back quickly soon. Candace is with us. Candace, aloha from Oregon. Welcome, Candace. We're glad to have you here. And Dan Frost is here, got the new Hawaii magazine. I think there's a guy impersonating Scott on the back of the mag with other realtors. Is a pick a scalp. It's a dude in a suit and a tie. No, Ren Spooner can't. Scott, is that you on the back of Hawaii magazine?
Oh yeah, when I'm not on this show, I'm in a suit and tie normally.
Well,
No,
there you go.
yeah, we ended up our top producer's photograph thing. Evidently, a couple of people sent it to me. I didn't even know it came out. Was in the magazine.
Well, there you go, man. We there are celebrities at every level with us, Dan. Appreciate that. Dan, were you? I got an email from a Dan Frost. Is that you? Just a little bit while before the show started. If you got that question, Dan, repost it back over here so we can take it. I didn't have time to process the email the way I normally do. Alex is with it. How's it? So Alex, how's it? There's no space. There's no space between the Z and the I. It's how's it. It's one word. It's not how's it. It's how's it. So put that in there, just so you know, Alex. You get a little bit of free Islander Ohana. Yeah, Dan. Okay, cool. That is you. Excellent. Great. Excellent. So repost it. All right, gang, it is that time. It's 9:02. Let's get this guy going over here and start off with what we're going to talk about today. And let's go. Okay, great. So really some quick updates here. So a couple of interesting things kind of going on now. The visitor industry is like they're sounding the alarm bells. There's not enough staff. There's not enough people to kind of handle the expansion. So if you're into the visitor industry and you're looking for considering a job in the visitor, or if you are employed in the visitor industry, or if you're thinking about a job in the visitor industry, this is the time. This is a moment. Maybe you're in management or not. It's definitely happening. So that's that. The Inter-Island Cruise has come back, which is really cool. This is the Norwegian cruise line, the Pride of America cruise ship. And, we've actually, family-wise, we've done this several times back a long time ago when they kind of first started. It is a great way to see the island chain. They're up and running right now. They're at half capacity. They're operating at 50% capacity, which, because of COVID, etc. But boy, what a great moment to kind of go on an uncrowded cruise ship. If you haven't done the island cruise, I would recommend it highly. It's a great way to kind of see all the islands, and you stay in a hotel, so to speak, that floats around. It's great. Another one, Waipio Valley closure controversy. I'd be interested if Dylan's going to have any kind of feedback on this one. So Waipio Valley is in my mind, it is the most beautiful place on earth. It is unbelievable, truly God's country. The road's been closed because of the reason being given is they need to do road repairs, but there's all kinds of controversy about it. For example, here I'm going to try something new here today. See if I could do this. I'm going to post let's see here. It did work. Okay, here we go. So for those of you that are here, no, it didn't work. No, it didn't work. Oh, darn. Oh, well. I was going to post a link in the chat, and that link does not work. But I was going to post a link to the chat to a Facebook post, but that's not there anyway. There's some controversy there. There's guards at the top, and there's favoritism going on. Who can come in and who cannot? They kind of bend the rules for some, but not bend the rules for all. I'm interested if Dylan has got any feedback on that. If he does, Maui has got some issues. Be interested to see what Heidi's heard about this. There's a deer pest problem because of their part of the cause is there's a drought on Maui, and the drought is making the deer kind of do crazy things like jump over fences and kind of go into farms. And it's causing all kinds of problems. There's a growing deer pest problem. Interestingly enough, there's also a company that has started on Maui, and this company is specializing in packing venison, deer meat. So they're trying to kind of make it some sort of a sustainable thing, right? Where they harvest out the unwanted deer, and they're packing that up as venison. So I've heard about that. I don't know what the name of the company is, but if you Google Maui venison, things like that, you'll probably find it. Short-term vacation rental bill has passed. We've been tracking this for a while. This looks like it's going to be taking the next step. It hasn't been legally signed yet, but it looks like it's going to be signed because the mayor was the guy who brought it up. This means short-term rentals. So a short-term rental is defined as something that's under 90 days. This is Dan's question, I believe. Dan was looking for a place to rent. Anyway, so there's going to be some changes based on that. That market's going to be experiencing some serious change. And then finally, the weather. The weather's perfect, of course, as always. Look at those temperatures again every single week. Those of you that have been on the show, you've seen this every week. Every time I show it to you, the temperatures don't vary by more than 1 degree, which is absolutely remarkable. Still blows me away about Hawaii. All right, I think that's about it for today for the news part. Let's move on and let's talk about kind of what's new, what's happening. Either a market, and we're going to talk about. We have a we have a special tax show we're going to talk about shortly. But in the meanwhile, any news you want to report on about Maui? Any market updates? We're going to go counterclockwise. Heidi, Scott, and Dylan. Any market updates? Any news? What would you like to share about Maui, Heidi?
So just a quick market update. We received our new stats, and condo median prices on Maui shot up to 820,000 for the median price for a condo last month, which is up 28% from last year. And single family homes are at 1.1775 as a median price for a single family home. Still continues with less on the market, low inventory compared to last year. Since I don't know, the market's always changing, right? I mean, things are just a little bit different than they were before. Interest rates are going up, which is it's causing some buyers to take a pause, but then other buyers are even more motivated because they're thinking, oh, well, I better get something now and not wait a year or two. So it's an interesting time. And then just commenting about the deer, I saw something on the local news that was kind of interesting. I guess deer are coming now in people's backyards looking for green grass and things to eat. And on this news story, they said, oh, just stop watering your yard and then you'll keep the deer away. And I thought that was a funny solution, but
Stop watering your yard and kill all the vegetation on it so that deer won't come. That's the solution. Oh, well. Yeah, interesting. Thanks, Heidi. Anything else you want to add about Maui?
no, I mean, that's it, unless you
That's
have any
it.
questions for me.
Well, if you got some questions for Heidi, folks on Maui, kind of pop them in the comments, and we'll be sure to take those. Scott, what's the latest on Oahu? What's their feedback? What's the market? What's happening?
Man, we've been cruising along with not too much news for a little while, and then bang, all at one time, like 4 different things are going on. The biggest, so I'll give you a quick market update just so, because it leads into something else that's really interesting. Single family homes this year on Oahu, the median sales price is 1.15 million now. We are actually up year to date 22% in price from the same time last year, which is, I mean, it's amazing. We're still trucking along. And condos, because there's so little inventory on the single family home side, the condo market is heated up, and the offshore and foreign buyers are starting to come back, and prices are up 14% year to date for condos. And what's crazy, I saw an article where we're 30% more affordable now than we were at the peak in 2006. So they're saying we have more room upward to go. But interest rates just went up from the bottom of where interest rates were during the pandemic. They've gone up 2%. In the last 3 months, they've gone up 1.5%. And what's amazing, if you calculate that to a price component, in the last 3 months, if you move it over to what that would equate in a price appreciation, that's 20% in the last 3 months. So you're up 22% in price from the same time last year, and an effective cost on people's mortgages by 20%. And you're up 28% from the beginning, from the bottom of where interest rates had dropped. So at some point you can't keep on this accelerated path. But what is interesting is when I look at the number of new sales, they're down. I mean, I'm sorry, number of new listings, they're still down. And the pending sales, which are escrows going on right now, are higher than they were last year. So the momentum isn't slowing down yet, but yet we're having this significant appreciation. I mean, common sense would tell you if you're in a market where conditions are going to lend itself to 20% price appreciation, you would think that if interest rates equated to like a 10% increase, then prices would probably only go up 10%. We're far exceeding that. So the interesting thing is we're in an inflationary time. We're moving in that direction where things are going to cost more, and most people buying a mortgage payment. So I do expect us to decelerate on that price. You can't have both of these going on in the same way and keep the same momentum. But I don't see prices coming down. And even if they did go sideways, what are we talking? Your mortgage payment tomorrow is going to cost more than it would today, right? So if you wait to buy, it's going to cost you more if you're getting a mortgage payment. It's interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with the numbers in the next 2 to 3 months, because we should see some deceleration, not slow down. And I'm hoping to slow down in some of the number of sales, because we're still active inventories at 425, where it's not like it's ballooning up, and the pending sales are far outstripping that. So, man, the market just keeps getting weirder. Then you add on top of it the Red Hill issue, where they're talking about a moratorium on water, potentially new developments, I should say, restriction of water, and potentially a moratorium on new construction and new developments. Okay, don't add any more supply to the market. What's that going to do to prices at that point? And it takes 5 to 7 years to build a new well, which is what they were talking about. So if you don't have new construction for 5 to 7 years, man, it's crazy. I mean, it's nuts to imagine what's coming down.
It's I mean, as you're saying all this, what's kind of going through my mind was that, if if the laws of economics are still in effect, in this universe, which they presumably are, it really means only one thing. It means that, well, either there's been a huge increase in the demand, which is possible because you have these, the pandemic opened up a new category of buyer, an out-of-state buyer that can work remotely, and that becomes an in-state buyer that can work remotely. So that is a new category of buyer, hence a new sense of the demand. And it also means that the market was significantly undervalued. It was significantly undervalued, and these price increases, and these nonstop increases, kind of seem to take effect. Crazy. All right, let's go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, yeah. Think about this. Not only did we add out-of-state buyers, because when people were sitting at home during the pandemic reevaluating their life, they said, "Where do we want to live? We don't want to live here. We want to go live in Hawaii or somewhere else." But those interest rates that dropped allowed people to refinance, lower their payments, potentially pull capital and equity out of their property. Now they got to go invest it. So everybody got this huge influx of capital to be able to go invest. And that's what you're partly starting to see.
And that's absolutely a part of it. All right, before we move on to Dylan, I want to hit a couple of comments real fast. And BB came with a great thing. Put the dogs in the yard, scare the deer away. Absolutely. This assumes you have a dog, and presumably an intimidating dog. But yes, Andre, we're going to come back to your question here. Assessed valuations have inflations. Can you expand on what you mean by that a little bit more, Andre? I'm not exactly sure what that question is. Let's pop that back in. Give us a little bit of an expansion there. Dylan, give us the Big Island update. If you could talk about, if you know anything about the Waipio Valley, but whatever else you want to share, market news, what's interesting in Maui on the Big Island.
Yeah, the Waipio thing is difficult. The mayor shut the road down because of potential hazard and danger. It is, if you've ever been down there, it's a crazy steep road, very narrow in some areas, and you have to stop and wait for traffic to come up in order to pass in just a couple of areas on the way down. But I can tell you the last time I went down there, maybe it was last September or something, and I was shocked at how many people were there. I mean, there was literally hundreds of people on the beach. And so, we got to find some balance of preserving resources and not, abusing those types of areas. But then you have, freedom of movement. And so if you let one person in, how do you not let other people in? So, yeah, I don't know if I don't have a good solution to that, but there's definitely there's good arguments and reason on both sides of that. So we're not going to solve that here in the show. That's kind of the background on that. But yes, one of the most beautiful places in the world for sure. The other positive news for the Big Island is the Merry Monarch Festival is coming back. And if you've never watched the Merry Monarch Festival, I don't know offhand where it's going to be streamed, but they do stream it online, so you don't have to, have a local TV station. But it's the premier hula festival in the world. Obviously, it's going to be in Hawaii, but they do it in Hilo, which is cool because it's a small town, and we haven't had it in 2 years. And so, if you want to see just world class, the pinnacle of hula talent, that's going to be happening next week, starting on the 18th. So check that out and support that, because it's a really cool event for the Big Island that we treasure here. So, and then real estate market wise, so just to give some practical examples of what this interest rate hike is causing in the market, related to what Scott is talking about, is I've had 2 transactions on my team cancel in the last week because of a reevaluation of the interest rate. So if you're working on, and this is just general advice to buyers out there, if you got pre-qualified 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, and you're shopping, and that's like your maximum price point that you can buy, you may want to go redo your pre-qualification, talk to your lender again, because your buying power could have gone down. And so what we're seeing happen is people are getting under contract based on a pre-qualification amount that they got maybe 2 months ago, and now they don't qualify for that anymore. So once you open escrow and the lender reevaluates the file, they're no longer qualified to buy because the increase in the interest rate has decreased their buying power. So that's definitely going to have some type of effect. But like Scott was saying, we're not feeling that. I mean, that's happening on a case-by-case basis, but that property goes back on the market and they find a buyer for it the next day. So it's not like it's having a detrimental effect on the ability of a seller to sell a property. And for us on the Big Island, what's interesting is that a year ago, we were back in full swing, right? March of 2021, the market was on fire. And on the Big Island, we had 1,596 active listings, just all properties, condos, homes, land, and there were 1,631 in escrow. So there were more under contract a year ago than there were available to purchase. And then so today it's 1,530. So there's a few less active listings than there were a year ago, but there's 1,293 in escrow. So we're back to more active listings than in escrow, but we're almost still kind of at that 1-to-1, when normally it's more of a 2 to 3 to 1 ratio in terms of number of properties available versus properties that are under contract. So still, the market is crushing. The only reason that I think there's a slowdown in the number of escrows is that buyers are being really aggressive on price. So we're starting to see homes sit for 90 days, 100 days, because they're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 overpriced. So that's the biggest mistake a seller can make in this market, is that you abuse the really favorable market you're in and try and be really, really greedy. And buyers at some point will say, okay, that's enough. I'm not gonna buy. But yeah, the market continues to be strong. The interesting stat on the Big Island too is that the median price for condos is actually higher than the median price for homes right now. So we're at this is island wide, because we do have markets where there are affordable homes, but the median price for homes are $515. The median price for condos is $650, and condos are seeing over 100% average list to sold price. So the condo market is completely on fire right now.
That's great. Dylan, you said there's 1,500 current listings going on. Is that what you said? 1,500 or so?
That's all listings. So homes, land, and condos. Everything. Available properties. Yeah.
And Scott's cracking up, because Scott, you said Oahu has 400, right?
Well, that's homes.
No,
that's
homes. But we only have 875 active condos on the market. So we're at like 1,300. We're less than the Big Island, and that includes all high-rise towers. The entire urban core, everything. It's nuts.
This has been another trend, right? That we've kind of repeated at almost like every show. For rounding error purposes, Oahu and the Big Island have the same amount of listings. Let's just say give or take, same amount of listings. However, Dylan, how many times the population? I mean, Oahu has 1 million people,
and it's 5 times the population.
Yeah. We have 5 times the population. Just to give you a sense of how crazy this market is, we have 5 times the population.
And let me add context to my number, because it can be a little bit deceiving. We have tons of agricultural land that is for sale. So 800 to 1,000 listings on the Big Island at any given time are vacant land lots in the rural areas of the island. So really, we have from homes and condo standpoint, we have like 400 or 500. So it's a lot less than what it looks like in terms of total available listings. But it's crazy because we're floating right around 400 active single family home listings, which is about the same as Oahu.
Right.
So that
Right.
number is almost 1-to-1 with Oahu.
The
It's
number's still a
crazy.
1-to-1 number, but
Yeah.
we have a 5 times more. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. All right, we had a couple. Go ahead, Scott.
And to piggyback on what both Heidi and Dylan said, for what we're having to do with buyers now at this point is, hey, anytime you see a property that you like, okay, we got to run your numbers again because rates have changed. And where are you now before we go and put in that offer? Do we do it? Do you know what your payment's going to be? We're more or less once a week, we're having to rerun people's numbers just to make sure we're staying in line and to follow things, see where they go, and give that advisement on strategy and stuff. We have 5 out of 10 condos are selling over asking price here, and 6 out of 10 homes are selling over the asking price.
And this is after year over year 20% increase in prices, and with a sort of a hidden 20% increase in price due to the interest rates going up. So it's just amazingly nonstop. All right, I want to catch up on some comments over here. First from Auntie Joyce, who says Monarch is the best, not to be missed. Absolutely, can't get tickets, of course, but better to watch on TV or tape and watch at your leisure. Definitely, it is the cultural event. I think really for locals, for Hawaii. For local residents, it is. Let's say it's one of the major cultural events of the year. Dylan is. Tickets are like impossible, right? There's like no way you have to be like superhuman or know someone or whatever. There's no way to get in there. But the funny part is I see a lot of
it's like a lottery system. You got to send in your requests early, and then they pick, and then you get chosen to have 2 or whatever. I mean, it's super hard.
Yeah, super hard because it's very, very limited. It's a very small spot.
The only time I've ever attended in person is when I worked for the governor, and we used to get tickets right in the front row. So I will never go again because it's like, once you experience like right the front row, the best seats possible, like why would you ever go? So watch it on TV. It's great with the camera angles, and you get much better experience on TV for sure. So.
Yeah, oddly enough, it's very, 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 very true. Let's kind of follow up here with Andre. Helping schools and police and administrations and all government does isn't a problem to me, but does the market intrude upon tax bills? Not sure what you mean by that, Andre. I would say that the tax bills are certainly affected by the market as prices go up. Tax bills go up, and we're going to talk about taxes in more details in just a minute over here. Spencer's got a question. This one's for you, Dylan. Thoughts on the $34 million land lot in Kaupulehu? Dylan, if you know about that one. What % of land on the Big Island is available for sale and development? Dylan, you've talked about that in the past. I don't know if you know about this lot that Spencer's talking about, or what's your how much? What about land on the Big Island available for? Where is Kaupulehu? Where is that? Do you know where that even is, Dylan?
I don't. I'm not familiar with that listing.
All right, click yourself around. Maybe find it if you want to.
Not a lot of buyers in the market for $34 million pieces of land, but
yeah, Spencer, if you want to buy a $34 million piece of land, we definitely will. I can assure you that Dylan will put his team all over that one. Norm's got a question. Here we go. This is a good one. How much of an advantage does paying cash for a home help? Heidi, why don't you start with that one? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think a cash offer is always a competitive offer. And if there's similar offers that are cash and financed, usually the seller is going to go with the cash offer because there's just not the, one less contingency with the financing. With cash, you can close faster. You don't have to worry about an appraisal. What I'm seeing right now is, even with financed offers, buyers are pretty much being asked to waive an appraisal contingency these days. But cash is always better, but don't expect to get a huge discount just because you're paying cash. You're still going to have to be up there in a competitive price, close to whatever the other offers are.
So it's an advantage, but it's not the killer advantage. Scott or Dylan, is there anything you guys want to add to that, to what Heidi's already said?
Well, just to go back to the question, less than 5% of the Big Island is zoned for any type of development or really buying. The rest of it's federal and state land, Kamehameha schools land, large, significant landholders on the island. So it's very, very limited supply. And I'm not seeing a $34 million listing on the Big Island. So I'm not sure where you're seeing that at, but hit me up and we could follow up on that.
Yeah, hit us up, Spencer. He said it's near the Four Seasons it was sold. So that would give you an idea of that's why
it was probably, developable luxury land that you could develop into, they sell those lots off for $3 to $5 million and then build a $10 million house on it. So it's probably a great deal for whoever's going to go and pursue that project.
It's gonna be an amazing project. That's for darn sure. Anybody want to add to the Scott? Is there anything you want to add about the cash advance that Heidi hasn't already mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, in this market, there's some, I put this property on the market in Lower Makakilo for $825,000. We had 15 offers and we're in escrow at $950. If you're not competitive on the price, it doesn't matter if you're cash or financing in this market, because I have all these strategies that I'm using right now to make my financing people just as competitive as cash. So there's enough people in the market that if you're not competitive on price, it won't matter if you're cash or if you're doing financing. Would you prefer to do cash? Yep, for all the reasons that Heidi just said about the financing component, adding extra contingencies and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're not competitive on price, forget it. Doesn't matter if you got a briefcase of cash.
Yeah, that's well said. Go ahead, Dylan.
One thing to consider with that, and one is definitely, I get the cash buyer that wants to try and get a deal. Can we get it at list or lower? And I'm like, no, because somebody is gonna go over list price with financing, and if they're strong finance, and that's one of the things to think about with financing is what's important is to understand and look at, and I tell sellers this, what the financing looks like. Because if you're putting 50% down and you're only required to have 20% down per your loan program, you basically have a 30% appraisal gap built in, right? So we don't really care about the appraised value at that point. You can waive the appraisal because we know that you have plenty of cash to cover any shortfall in an appraisal. If you're doing 10% down and that's what's required of your loan program and you don't have any more savings, then you don't have the ability to make up any difference in appraisal. So you're in a weaker position. So not all financing is created equal is the short story. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that with cash, you're going to beat everybody out. You're not going to beat all financing out with cash, because if it's financed if it's a strong financed offer that has plenty of down payment room to cover a gap in the appraisal, they're going to beat you on price, like Scott said. Price is what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's and from what I learned from you guys, it's you folks, it's not just price; it's the cash that the seller puts in their pocket when everything is done. That's at the end of the day, which is what the real price is. So Norman's going to help.
And the reality is, appraisals aren't that bad. I mean, we're getting them onesie twosies that come in low, but I mean, we're not having these rash of extremely low appraisals. So if you're counting on an appraisal coming in low and renegotiating, it's just not happening that often right now.
Yeah, we are in a different world. We got a really technical show today, which is kind of fun. We are geeking out on numbers here. So Bibi says, small business in search of loan to buy and develop $1.5 million lot on Molokai. Where should I start? Good question. Look, Bibi, the place to start is in the comments. In the comment section, I got links. Click on that link. Fill out the form. It's going to come to me and Dylan and Scott and Heidi, and give us the details on what you're looking for, and we will absolutely be able to hook you up with the right thing. We got some experienced people here. Definitely reach out. Click on the link in the description for sure. Fill out the form. That's where to start. Paul, who's back with us. Paul's been Paul. You're here almost every show, which is great. Asks, is there a price point above which competition for a house decreases? So I think, Paul, what you're referring to is this sort of, we keep talking about there's all these listings that, these competitive purchases are going on. A house goes on the market, it gets bid up right away, it goes off, et cetera, et cetera. What's the price point where there's not a whole lot of competition? Let's kind of hit this one. Why don't we do let's do Scott and then Heidi and then Dylan on this one. Scott?
Yeah, on Oahu it's about 4 or 5 million and up, and so that starts to thin out the buyer pool. We that typically shifts people more to the international buy side. But like I talked before, when I did that luxury market segment, when I talked about it, from top to bottom, we're seeing real strength in all market segments. So yes, it thins out, and yes, you're going to have less competition. You're not going to have 15 offers and whatnot, but you still do have competition even above that $4 or $5 million range.
And I saw some listings, Scott. They're just kind of ethereally popping into my head about some, multi-million-dollar listings that price $1 million over the asking price. I don't know I've heard. So just because you're in that rarefied area does not mean that you're not going to pay that listing price. Heidi, how would you what's the price point that starts to thin out the competition on Maui?
Yeah, similar on Maui. I mean, up in the 4 or 5 million and above. I mean, the higher in price you go, the less the buyer pool is. But I mean, an $18.5 million home just sold in McKenna recently. So, I mean, things are still selling at the high end luxury price point. But for a property like that, no, you would not have 10 offers on something like that. But we're still seeing a lot of strength on Maui. I mean, even in the like 2 million, $3 million range. I mean, that's still been really strong. So across the board.
Yeah, so we're looking at 4 or 5 million. Dylan, what's the number on the big island where things start to thin out?
I would say it's not that high, 2.5, 3 million. I mean, the last house I got under contract that didn't have multiple offers was 3.1 million. So everything else below that we're being competing for. So but yeah, the big one has an interesting dynamic where in that, when you kind of get above 3 million, it depends on where it is, because you have these resort communities that have more of that type of buyer interest, and then if you're kind of off of that, it's more of these estate type properties with big acreage and maybe a farm on it, and it's a different type of property. So the kind of $3 to $5 million buyer kind of likes that easy set it and forget it gated community, in a resort kind of area, versus a big huge farm, or ranch or whatever it is. So it's an interesting dynamic, but really that it depends on where you're looking in that price range that matters too.
There you go. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dylan and Scott and Heidi for those responses. Paul, hope you got the good feel there. You're looking at 3 million to start on the big one, and 4 million and up on Oahu and on Maui. BB, Dan's ready to work for you. So maybe you two can connect up and kind of make something happen. I think Dan wants to go to the Big Island. So Dan wants. I think we've covered everybody for right now. Really quick before we move on, if you have any questions, if you have the things you want us to take, pop it in the comments now. We're going to be moving on. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, but I want to make sure that your stuff gets answered. Put it in the comments. We'll go from there. All right. Let us move on. And next up here is let's see. Let's go here. So hey, gang, look. If so, we have a bunch of people that are interested here. Well, what the show's mostly about is real estate. If you're looking at buying soon, you want to get into the Islander Ohana. That we're closing up our deadline for registration is in a couple days, and we're going to be starting up our cohort on the 30th. If you join the Islander Ohana, when you do end up buying the home, you'll get your fee will be not the word refunded, but rebated. You're going to get a rebate for the fee. So it ends up being free. So if you're looking at buying a real estate on Oahu, actually anywhere in the state through our network, the Island Ohana is where you want to get a handle on. First, we include classes as well on real estate. In addition to everything else, just go to islanderohana.com for all of the details. All right, let's move on. And we're going to talk about, so it's tax day, right? And so I figured, why not? Let's make this about give you a quick sort of a rule of thumb to estimate property taxes. If you're buying in the millions of dollars, you're concerned about your finances. Let's get some info on property taxes, especially since today is April 15th. First, we got a couple of things I want to cover. Some things from Dan. Oh, Dan says we stayed a couple of times in Kolea at Waikoloa Beach Resort. Great place. Yeah, Waikoloa Beach. That is actually my wife and I. That's our favorite spot to go outside.
Kolea is probably the best complex there too. So,
is it really?
Yes.
Okay. We our favorite place, of course, is the Hilton Waikoloa, and we really enjoyed that property. But yeah, Kolea, excellent. Look at the rent for 30 days. Okay, so here's Dan's question. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you repeating this. So Dan's looking to rent. So before we talk about taxes, look at the rent for 30 days. Kailua Kaneohe. I know I have to hurry. What's the best way to confirm the house rental isn't a scam? Thoughts? Dan, unless Scott says otherwise, I'd have to say it's more likely I don't want to call it the word scam than not, but there is no legal rental for 30 days in Kailua Kaneohe. There wasn't then, and there certainly isn't going to be now. Scott, you want to kind of add on to that? If you're looking for a 30-day rental, it's really going to be in the resort areas around either Waikiki, Ko'olina, on which is West Oahu, or the North Shore. Scott, you want to add to that for Dan's question?
Yeah, I think Dan's referring to the new the new ordinance that's 42 pages long. You can do 30 days in residential until this bill is passed, which takes effect in 180 days, whenever it's fully passed. So if you're looking for something 30 days, I'd say Zillow or Airbnb. I'd stay away from Craigslist, and I would, Airbnb is going to verify people, right? Zillow does it the same way, but I would double check, anybody that you're dealing with on names and things like that. I would try to do some internet research on, check out the background, see if they show up, and if they're a realtor that's running it, which is a good chance, then you should be able to find them online somewhere.
That's great advice. Thanks, Scott, for sharing that. Dan, I hope please keep us posted. Happy to help. Norm's got a question. Coming to Hilo for our unvacation. The unvacation is a thing we talk about in the Islander Ohana course, and I could tell that Norm's gone through the videos. For the unvacation on May 17th, like to volunteer for beach cleanup. Any recommendations? Norm, send me. You're a member of the Islander Ohana. You're in. Give me a flip back and send me an email. I'll connect you up with Dylan, and we'll be able to connect to give you great resources to connect with. You're in the Ohana, Norm.
One of the agents on my team is on the Surfrider Foundation board, and they do beach cleanups all the time. So I got just a person to talk to.
There you go. So Norm, membership has its benefits, Norm. So just flip me back an email. I just sent an email to you guys this morning, so email me back. And Dan, good Dan. I'm glad that this was helpful. This is what this group is all about. Scott has great advice. Excellent. Thanks. All right, let's get back to our favorite topic, the hate of the day. We're talking about estimating property taxes. So let's start with Maui. So look, all we want to do here, because my eyes are going to roll back into their sockets with the complexity. So I think all we want to kind of hit here is just kind of a quick, kind of a back of the napkin, kind of how would you kind of look at this? How would you calculate your taxes? Heidi, you've got a good look over here, folks. If you want to know more, you do get the newsletter, right? You're on the newsletter. You did get invited to the show. Reply back to me on the newsletter, and I can send you these slides so you can see these details. But Heidi, why don't you give us a quick overview of how would you calculate property taxes on Maui, really quick?
Sure. Well, great news. Even though it's tax day, it's not property tax day. Our tax year goes from July 1st to June 30th, and property taxes are due in February and August. And as you can see on this chart, their properties are taxed based on how they are being used. And there's all these different classifications. The highest property tax rates are going to be for timeshare, which is almost 1.5% of the value, short-term rental, hotel resort, and then owner-occupied is significantly less. So I'll just do a really quick illustration for $1 million house. If it was owner-occupied, and then I'm figuring in the $200,000 tax exemption that you get, you might be paying about $2,000 a year in property tax. If it was a secondary residence, it would be about $6,050. If it was a long-term rental, it would be about $4,800. And if it was a short-term rental, about $11,150. So, I mean, there's quite a variation based on how the property is being used. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, but yeah.
That's a good one, Heidi. That's a great overview. No, thank you. That's terrific. It's interesting. Yeah, there is. Thank you for pointing out. There's a humongous difference between the timeshare at $1,450 per thousand, per thousand of assessed value. That's an amazing number. Heidi, what's the difference between let's say I guess I'm going to answer my own question. A non-owner occupied would mean like a second home versus a short-term rental, which is a different kind of a non-owner occupied home, right? So a short-term, if you're short-term rental means you're renting out. Well, I think I'm answering my own question here. A non-owner occupied is a home that like a second home. Is that basically what a non-owner occupied is defined as essentially?
Yes, but Maui County did pass a new law last year that properties are classified at highest and best use. So if you're in an area that allows short-term rental, your taxes are automatically going to be short-term rental. So even if you don't rent it out and just use it for personal use for part of the year, you, as of last year, you are now going to be taxed at that short-term rental tax rate. So non-owner occupied would be if you own a house or a condo in a residential area and that is not your primary residence. And your primary residence is where you file your income taxes as a primary resident. And in order to get the homeowner exemption, you need to file taxes the preceding tax year as a primary resident in Maui
Got it.
County. So it's
Got
not
it.
instantaneous. It could take
Sure.
a couple years to get that exemption.
Well, my eyes were just about to roll back in their sockets when you talked about filing Form X, Y, and Z for the previous year and not having it valid until the second year, and it goes into effect in the third year, but you have to wait for the property that. Whew, good. Thank Heidi. Excellent details. Thank you. And you know what? It's not just me. Patrick appreciates it. Heidi, great overview of the property tax estimate for Maui. Thank you. Patrick, we appreciate it. Tax is a very, very dry topic, and I'm my my ADD kind of kicks in, and so we're going to move on and let's hit the big on over here. Dylan, give us the quick overview. What's how do you calculate how would you kind of go about some rule of thumb stuff for calculating property taxes on the Big Island?
The first thing, and I guess the Hawaii County property tax people aren't as smart as Maui because ours is way simpler to understand. So the first thing is they confuse you by doing this, like, $11 per $1,000 of tax assessed value. Really, you just move the decimal point one time to the left and it's a percentage now, right? So if you want to think about it like how normal people think about taxes, it's a percentage. So on all of these numbers over here, you just move it one time to the left. So for example, the residential rate there, the second one down, if you go one time to the left, it becomes 1.11% or 1.3, what is that, 6%. So that's the one kind of confusing thing is for the Big Island, there's two different rates based on the valuation. So if it's under $2 million, you pay that 1.11%, but the portion above $2 million, you pay that 1.36%. So that means if you have a $2.5 million house, you pay the one rate on the $2 million, and then on the $500,000, you pay the higher rate. That's kind of new. They did that last year, I believe. But really, for the Big Island, you have all of these different rates, but there aren't like short-term rental, long-term rental, all that stuff. It's either you pay the residential rate, which means it's not owner-occupied, or you pay the homeowner rate, the one all the way at the bottom, number 9, and that means you do owner-occupy it. So if you owner-occupy it, you get a $180,000 exemption off the assessed value, plus you pay the lower 0.615%. So it's almost half, the tax rate is almost half as if you pay the full residential rate. And you pay that full residential rate, doesn't matter how you're using it, short-term rental, long-term rental, second home, whatever. As long as you're not your primary residence, you pay that residential rate. So those are the two that'll affect most people. All this other stuff, industrial, commercial, you're usually not going to be affected as a consumer unless you're a business owner and own that type of property. But that's kind of the short rundown on property taxes on a Big Island. They're not that complicated, but the important thing to understand is, one, like Heidi said, how are you going to use it? Because that's going to affect the rate. And looking at a property online today and you see what the property tax rate is, doesn't mean it's going to be your property tax rate. So you do want to figure out, okay, how am I going to use it? And the assessed value is almost always going to go up once it sells, because that's one of the things. Assessed value very much lags the market. So you could be looking at $1 million house that's assessed at $600,000 that has a homeowner's exemption on it, and so the taxes may be like $1,200 and look really cheap, right? But then if you buy it at $1 million and then you're going to use it as a second home, now you're going to pay 1.11% on a valuation that's going to be closer to $1 million, because they're going to reevaluate that soon after the property sells. So your tax rate could be $10,000, right? It could go from $1,200, but today to $10,000 when you actually take ownership of it.
That's a really good point. You really got to look at how it's going to be evaluated and what the rate's going to be. So Dylan, the big like you said, the issue here is residential and homeowner. Homeowner means you're living in the home. Residential would mean it's a home you've got that's not where your primary residence, and then there's that graduated tax rate of the first 2 million, almost like your income taxes. Got it. Interesting. Got a couple of questions that are popping in. Actually, Dan, quite relevant. Does Hawaii reevaluate the property regularly? Yeah. So Dan, as you've all, one thing that's interesting here is that there are different laws for the different counties, or in this case, the islands. So each of the county has their own laws. So Dylan, from what I heard you say, the property does it get reevaluated more than just when it's sold, or does it get real? How does the reevaluation work for property tax assessment purposes?
And if it's something that was owned for a long time, the valuation may go up 2 or 3 or 4% every year. So there's a small kind of incremental increase every year. But again, the market, when you've seen the last couple of years go up 15-20%, that valuation hasn't caught up to that. So the county assessed value is usually going to be much lower if the property's been owned for 10 or 20 years. But once you sell it and they see the new sales price, they're gonna reevaluate that based on somewhat closer to that sales price. There is a lag in that happening though, because the county only does an assessment once a year, and then the change in rates only happens once every 6 months. So for example, and this happens often, and this affects your ability to buy in terms of your financing, right? Because the loan officer is going to look at the current taxes. So if it's currently paying the full residential rate, but you're going to homeowner be a owner occupant, they're going to base your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on your payment on what the current taxes are, even though they will go down once you own it. But usually for the first about 6 months, you're going to pay whatever the previous owner's tax rate was, because the tax rates only change every January 1 and July 1. So, if you buy the house in February, you're going to pay that old rate until it gets changed in July 1st. So there will be some lag. Complicated, but yeah, it's not going to happen immediately.
Yep, got it. Thanks, Dylan. So, Patrick, we're going to hit this one next. So, Patrick says, so Scott, does a 200K exemption apply to Oahu? Again, we're going to find out, because Oahu has a different tax law.
Big Island's 180. Big Island's 180,000, so it changes from island to island, and it actually goes up after you go above 70. If you're disabled, there's a bunch of other exemptions that can get piled onto
All right,
that.
man, my eyes are rolling back in their sockets. My ADD is kicking in. I can only handle so much of this stuff. All right, so let's go on. Let's move on to the next one here. Let's see. Why don't we why don't we do this, gang? So there's a bunch of questions that I've got in. I got one from Da Spot Kaunakakai. We're going to take that one in a sec. Kev, I got yours too, and Andre. Andre, I've got yours too. So stand by. We're going to take everyone's questions one by one. But first, let's hit the Honolulu County tax chart. Scott, why don't you give this an explanation of what's going on over here?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about residential in general. So we're 3.5 cents per every $1,000 for assessed value if you're an owner occupant or primary resident. So $1 million property, it's $3,500 for the year, which is very affordable. If you're non-owner occupant, meaning either second home or you rent it out, and that's going to be long term, obviously longer than 90 days now, then your up to $1 million gets taxed at 4.5 cents per every $1,000 of assessed value. So $4,500 for $1 million, and then anything above $1 million jumps to 10.5. So if you're non-owner occupant and the more expensive that property gets, the accelerated the property tax rate increases significantly over $1 million because of the 10.5 cents. Otherwise, the property taxes are really low. It's when you get into hotel and resort and stuff like that that the city and county wants to get their hands into that. Tourism money effectively is what it is, and for hotel and resort it's $13.90. So it basically quadruples, right? Yep. Otherwise, there are home tax exemptions. If you buy and you're going to owner occupy it, you have to file a form, and there's different home tax exemptions. Basically, a discount on that property tax rate, and it's based on your age. So there's a whole matrix for that. Most people forget when they close on the property. You can't file it until you close. Most people forget to file it after they close. So then you don't get the exemption.
Interesting. So what kind of stands out here is how and I hope you all see an appreciation for this. Scott, what again was the exemption amount? The home exemption amount for Oahu?
It's either 180 or 200. The top. I mean, there's a whole scale depending on your age.
Got it. Got it. So, so 180 or 200, depending on age. And again, you have to file Form 25, followed by Form 26, and make sure you do it before Form Z of year 5. But anyway, that's all beside the point. What really kind of sticks out to me is, as I ran through this, was that, how different that the rates really are. I mean, not just the structure, but how different. I mean, look, the Oahu residential, just let's look at if you lived in, for those of you who live in Hawaii, on Oahu, it's 3.5%. On the Big Island, it's what 0.6%, right, Dylan? 0.6%. You move the decimal point, so it's less than 1%, 0.6%. And on Maui, if you're owner occupied, it's 2% at tier 3, which is over 1.5. So Maui could be anywhere from it's about 2.5% or so. So
it's actually just 0.25%.
I'm sorry, 0.25%. Thank you.
0.2%. Yeah.
0.25. Wow, that's right. Huge difference. So Maui is 0.25%. Big Island, if I got this right, for residential is 0.6%, and Oahu is 0.35%, right? If I got that right. So interesting. They are different, and they all have different needs, and it's gradual. So what this means, gang, what does this mean to you? Do you have any questions on taxes? I'm just about at my limit as far as I can handle that kind of stuff. Well, why don't we take a little mental break over here and hit some questions up. Let's see what we got here that came up. We got first of all, I got a comment from Auntie Joyce. Also, owner operated by owners qualify as kupuna. There is another break in property taxes. We love the discount. Great. Another kupuna is the local Hawaiian word for the senior discount. So there is I didn't realize there was a kupuna discount, but glad to know that there is. We got a question here from Dahat Spot Kaunakakai. Is it extremely difficult to get zoning changed? I'm interested in a property that is currently zoned as industrial, but I want to develop it with condos, a gas station, and a strip mall. Well, rezoning in Hawaii is something akin to an act of God. That's what I know, and I'm seeing some heads nodding over there. Anybody want to? Now, the hotspot Kaunakakai is on Molokai. So are you looking at doing a rezoning on Molokai? I would think that's like a whole next level. That's got to be a next level of rezoning effort to get that done. But let's just kind of call it generically, just on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is like it's a piece of cake, file a form and you're rezoned, and 5 is like no way in hell, Jose. How would you rate the difficulty of rezoning? Let's do Scott and then Dylan and then Heidi. Rezoning, Scott.
I'd say it depends. If you're down zoning, then it's not that difficult. If you're trying to go upwards on the zoning threshold of difficulty, trying to get something approved that's not normally approved, then yeah, it's much more difficult.
Dylan, what about you? What's the rezoning like on the Big Island?
Same with Scott. It's very case by case dependent. So in this case, what he's talking about is going from industrial back to something that you could do condos on, which is probably going to be more likely, right? As opposed to going from agricultural to trying to do residential or trying to do industrial or something like that from agriculturally zoned properties. So my advice is write the check to a good attorney and planning consultant and have them look at it, because they're going to be able to give you good advice. And they're the ones that live in the trenches doing this every day, dealing with the county councils, the planning departments, and all of those things. And they're going to be able to give you the best advice on that.
Yeah, that's really some sound advice.
Because there's also crazy stuff that can stop it. Like you can have the zoning already, and this is a big misconception with people is you have on the Big Island we have lots of huge pieces of land, or you have 20-acre pieces of land that are zoned Ag 1, so you can go to 1 acre land pieces out of a 20-acre lot. So people think, piece of cake, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to make 1 acre lots. But there's all kinds of other things that go into getting a subdivision approved. So even if you have the zoning and you can do what you want to do, or you think you can do what you want to do, now you got to put in infrastructure. You got to have water available. You got to have utilities available. I mean, there's all kinds. You may have to do a traffic study to see if you have enough, shoulder space off the highway to turn onto the property. There's all kinds of stuff that go into it. It's extremely complicated. And so if you ever talk to a realtor who says, oh yeah, you can subdivide this, they don't know what they're talking about. So that's a huge red flag when somebody tells you it's going to be easy or simple, because it's very complicated.
Yeah, and and to add to the complication, it is Molokai. So I would say the hotspot, number one is you need to be living in Molokai and a huge part of that community, and you need to know everybody in that community. That is one thing I would say for sure. You better know everyone, and they better know you, and not just know you. They better love you. They better love you and love your family, because that's what it's going to take in Molokai. Because Molokai is one big family that's been there forever. See, I see Scott nodding. Heidi, you have any other thoughts you want to add for about rezoning and any kind of feedbacks?
Yes, I mean, I would say, how much time do you have? Even if it's something that is possible, I mean, it could take 5 to 15 years. It's not going to be something, um, in most cases on Maui, that could even be foreseeably accomplished in a few years. And yes, I mean, get local representation, get a really good local attorney and somebody that has experience, um, doing that kind of thing, because it's not easy.
Yeah, I would say the hot spot. If you'll know you're on your way when you start getting invited to all kinds of baby luau's. When you start getting invited to all kinds of baby luau's, then you know you've got it right. You can start the process. Then you can begin the process of considering rezoning. But until you start getting invited to everyone's baby luau, ain't gonna happen. All right, man. Time has blown by. We're gonna have to make a compromise here, everyone, and we're gonna okay, well, the good news is I'm from Molokai and live here. Business has been servicing for 10 years. I will contact an attorney and plan it. Well, then you've got a huge part of it. If you're from Molokai and you've been living there, that's the great place. And then you already know what I'm talking about. You're already getting invited to baby luau's. How, how many baby luau's did you get invited to last year? I'm sure there was many. Um, let's see. And Andre, I'm a marine lawyer, good enough to support agriculture with all the development that wants life in Hawaii. Thank you, Andre. I love that comment. Why don't we move on? Man, this is going to be a really kind of a strange show, but let's do this. Let's do our. We got a few minutes to go, so we're going to be a quick one over here. Let's kind of hit diamonds and deal real fast. Take a little bit of a break and get some beauty in our lives over here, because my eyes are rolling back in their sockets and I'm getting exhausted. So here we go. Maui, Wako, how do you pronounce it? Wako Kele place, and Kula, Maui. Heidi, what are we looking at? It's beautiful. You're muted.
So this is a half-acre lot, and basically it's a site to build your dream home. But while you're building your dream home, you have this cottage, that you can live in. And as you can see in the one picture, there is a ramp access into this structure. It's 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, about 800 square feet inside, plus you have some outdoor space. There's irrigation on this property, jacaranda, magnolia, fruit trees. Also, I mean, this isn't super sexy, but there's a large capacity septic tank already put in. So it's an interesting opportunity in a very desirable area to either live or, live and build.
Excellent. Quick, Andre, that was a question. Is the marine layer good enough to support? Agriculture. Hawaii is one of the most fertile agricultural places on earth. It is the most fertile, the best tasting stuff is all grown in Hawaii. So yes, Hawaii's got the ag for sure. That's what Hawaii really is. A huge part of Hawaii's economy for decades was related to ag. All right, and Norm, thanks us for a good show. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Norm. It was touch and go for me, because I'm not into those kinds of things, but I know it was important. Oh my God, what we've got here? Koko Kai Oceanfront Estate. Scott, what's this? My God.
Yes, so this is oceanfront. So Port Lock, Koko Kai, and Triangle on Hawaii Kai all sit out on a peninsula, and I love these homes out here because you look back towards Honolulu, you can see Diamond Head is actually framed in the distance there. Sunsets go over either to the left or the right of Diamond Head, depending on the year, and it's stunning. So this is it's a pretty. I call this an estate-sized property. It's 18,000 square feet. It's actually 7,800 square feet of home, 6 bedrooms, 6.5 baths, and the architectural design was just phenomenal on it. You can see actually in the lower third, or the third picture on the bottom, There's a jacuzzi off the covered lanai off the master bedroom where you're looking out to the view. And then the one in the upper left, you can see the grand ceilings. I mean, it's basically 2 stories of ceilings, coffered ceiling, and then you have this curved opening area that you look out the living room. So just a beautiful property, great location, and well done. The developer did a great job on it.
It's incredible. What an amazing place. And this is such a beautiful area. I mean, look at the water off here. It's great swimming, great surfing. Yeah, Kev, right? Right? Exactly. Exactly. Wow. My God. Unbelievable. This is talk about a diamond. What an aspiration. Thanks, Scott, for sharing this. This is incredible. Dylan. Love this, man. Dylan, what do we got here, buddy?
Yeah, just wanted to mix it up a little bit and show a deal, right? You can still get a nice little house on a nice little piece of land for, $330,000. So this is just a 2-1 down in Green Sands, which is a rural area, kind of south part of the island near Naalehu. But these definitely exist, and the market is getting a lot hotter in these areas because of the high prices in the west and the east side of the island. So if you're looking to get a little simple house, you can definitely do it for under 400,000 still.
And man, that is amazing. Dan's talking about the previous property needs 7 bathrooms. So it's a no-go for me. Well, Dan, that's why you want the Maui property. The Maui property that Heidi's got, that's this bad boy over here. You can build as many bathrooms as you want. So there's always a place for you, Dan. So thanks for that. Man, gang, these were amazing properties. All of them. I love the diversity. Sometimes we're all synchronized, and other times where we have some diversity. So it was great. We went from $10 million to $335,000. That was amazing. And it is time to go. I've got to say, I must do one thing. I must say, because I do want to recognize Good Friday, being we're not going to do our well, what? Okay, look, it's 10:01. We're going to do it. So we're going to do our closing thoughts because it took a lot of work. So why don't we do this? Let's go back over here and let's hit it with Scott. You got the first one over here. What do you got, Scott? And why do you like it?
Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. There's anything you want to accomplish, you got to put some effort into it.
I love that. That's a great line. And well, the reviews are coming in. So Kev is liking it, and Bobby likes it. So thanks, Auntie Joyce as well. Appreciate it. That's a great one. So okay, Heidi, what do we got over here?
Acknowledging the good you already have in your life is the foundation of all abundance. And I mean, this is just related back to gratitude. And sometimes when you're going after a goal, you just keep thinking about what you don't have, but it's important to pause and recognize the good things that already exist and build everything from there.
Yeah, well said. Stop and take a moment to stop and smell the roses and acknowledging the good. Good. Thank you, Heather. Heather is an alumni of the Eleanor Hana. Thanks again. I'm glad you guys liked it. Certainly try to keep my eyes from rolling back into my sockets. Dylan.
Yeah, I heard this at a conference last week from one of the top people in our company, and the point was, in business, you gotta aim to do great so you can do good, right, for your community, for your family, for those around you. And I just thought that was really resonated with me, in what we aim to do in life is do great things so you can do good things.
Yeah, well said. That's I love these elements of success. They're really kind of it gives you. There's so many aspects of things to do in your life and to think of. So I appreciate you guys all sharing that. I normally have my proverbs, but I'm gonna pass on that, and I want to recognize that today is Good Friday for many Christians around the world. And whether you're a Christian or not, if you just look at Jesus of Nazareth in a historical context, just look at him as a person of history, the way you would look at Martin Luther King, or the way you would look at Gandhi. Just look at Jesus of Nazareth in that sense. Watch the movie The Passion of the Christ. And I think what's amazing to think of today on Good Friday, which we recognize this event, is here is this man who was brutally treated, brutally tortured, and yet at the end, even though he gave his life, he forgave. Amazing story. And that is the story I take away from today. So a blessed Good Friday to my Christian friends around the world. Okay, let's say goodbye, everyone. We're going to go counterclockwise. We're going to go Heidi, then Scott, and then Dylan. Say goodbye, everybody.
Aloha, everybody. Happy Easter weekend.
Yeah, have a good Easter, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Aloha, folks. We'll see you folks in 2 weeks. And Auntie Joyce, and you all do good. Blessings to all. Aloha, everyone.